No matter what you've seen in Western movies, the classic pistol duel scenes are the most iconic. You imagine a lawman and an outlaw meeting at high noon to see who can draw their gun faster, a test of skill and speed. But in reality, such duels were very rare. If you've heard the story of Wild Bill being shot in the back of the head while playing cards, you know how brutal real gunslingers could be. And if you think the movie Gunslingers are bloodier, it's because they were inspired by the violent men who roamed the Old West. Make sure you watch this video till the end to learn about the deadliest gunslingers in Old West history. 1. Jim Miller was a man known for his quick temper. His anger got him into trouble when he killed his first victim after an argument. Jim was born in Van Buren, Arkansas, but when he was just 1 year old, his family moved to Franklin, Texas. His father, Jacob Miller, was a stonemason who helped build the first Capitol building in Austin. A few years after moving, tragedy struck the Miller family. Jim's father died, so his mother moved the family to Avant, Texas, to live with her parents. In 1869, when Jim was only 8 years old, his grandparents were found murdered in their home. Nobody knew who did it, but Jim was arrested, although he was never charged. After his release, Jim went to live with his sister Georgia and her husband John Thomas Coop on their farm near Gatesville. But Jim and John Thomas often argued. On July 30th, 1884, after another fight, Jim took a shotgun and killed John Thomas while he was sleeping. This was Jim's first murder conviction. He was sentenced to life in prison, but his conviction was overturned on a technicality. After leaving the Coop farm, Jim worked as a hired hand on the McCulloch County ranch of Emmanuel Clements, cousin of outlaw John Wesley Harden. Despite his past, Jim joined the Texas Rangers and served as a ranger in Memphis, Texas, and later in Hall County. During his service, Jim killed a man in Collingsworth County while on duty. In the summer of 1902, Jim killed 2 men and wounded another, saying they were caught stealing cattle in Ward County. On August 28, 1902, Jim killed lawyer James Jarrett, who had been defending farmers near Lubbock, raising fences against cattle. Ranchers filed a legal complaint because they believed fences were blocking their cattle from grazing freely. They paid Jim Miller $500 to take care of James Jarrett, who they saw as an obstacle. Jim found Jarrett near his farm while he was watering his horses and confronted him. In the end, Jarrett didn't survive. Throughout his life, Jim was involved in multiple incidents and questionable activities. Eventually, he and his group were captured. While his 3 companions reportedly pleaded for mercy, Jim stayed calm. He only requested that his diamond ring be sent to his wife and that he be allowed to wear his black hat during his final moments. His wishes were granted. He also asked to wear his black coat, but the officials likely denied that due to the seriousness of his actions. It's said that Jim wasn't entirely clear-minded during his final moments. He didn't wait for the process to be completed. He stepped down on his own, bringing an end to a life marked by recklessness and bitterness. 2. John Wesley Harden. John Wesley Harden was only 15 when he was first involved in a deadly incident. Over the years, he was reportedly responsible for as many as 44 lives lost. He became known in the late 19th century Wild West as a skilled and feared gunslinger. Harden believed that he was more often the victim of injustice than the cause of it. He was deeply involved in gambling and made much of his income through betting on horse races and cattle trading. Between 1868 and 1877, he became infamous for his confrontations, with at least 21 confirmed incidents. Harden himself claimed the number was even higher, close to 44. Naturally, with such a reputation, he made many enemies. A $4,000 reward was offered for his capture. Still, Harden showed little concern. He spent his days gambling, drinking, and even began a relationship with another man's wife. His parents had hoped for a different path. They named him after John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist Protestant movement. Harden often claimed that he never harmed anyone who didn't deserve it. But one particular story raises doubts. One night in a hotel in Abilene, the man in the room next to Harden, named Charles Cougar, was snoring loudly. Harden knocked on the wall to wake him up, but got no response. In frustration, he fired a shot at the wall to startle him. When the noise stopped and no movement followed, Harden realized the shot had gone too low and had fatally injured the man. Still, this wasn't the event that made Harden truly infamous. 3. The fall of John Wesley Harden. After winning big at the horse races, Harden and some companions celebrated with heavy drinking, which caught the attention and anger of Deputy Sheriff Charles Webb in Comanche, Texas. A confrontation broke out, and Harden ended up winning the shootout. But the public reaction was negative, and he was forced to go on the run with a $4,000 bounty on his head. In 1877, he was eventually caught and sentenced to 25 years in prison. That was a long time, and Harden clearly didn't take it well. He made several failed attempts to escape. Over time, though, he began to change. Harden studied theology and law while in prison and became the superintendent of the prison's Sunday school. By 1894, he had shown enough signs of reform that he was pardoned. He was later admitted to the state bar and moved to El Paso to start a new life as a lawyer. Unfortunately, Harden's attempt at a better life didn't last. While defending a man named Martin Mraz, who was accused of cattle theft, Harden got involved with Martin's wife. The two eventually became romantically involved, and Martin was furious. Martin hired a lawman named George Scarborough to retaliate, but Scarborough betrayed him, and Martin was later shot near the border. Rumors spread that Harden had paid people to get rid of Martin before he could take revenge. Not long after, on August 19, 1895, one of the lawmen believed to be involved in Martin's death, John Selman, found Harden at the Acme Saloon in El Paso. Harden was shot from behind and died instantly. Some say he was killed because he failed to pay Selman for his role in Martin's murder. 4. Doc Holliday. One of the most recognizable names from the Old West is Doc Holliday, whose real name was John Henry Holliday. He was born on August 14, 1851. Doc lost his mother to tuberculosis when he was just 15, and her death deeply affected him. He studied dentistry and earned a Doctor of Dental Surgery degree. He began practicing with Dr. Arthur C. Ford in Atlanta, Georgia. But not long after starting his career, Doc learned he too had tuberculosis, likely passed on by his mother or his adopted Mexican brother, who also suffered from the disease. Doctors advised him to move to a dry climate to slow the disease's progress. So, in October 1873, he left for Dallas, Texas, which was then the last stop on the railroad line. Due to his illness and declining health, Doc couldn't continue working as a dentist. To support himself, he turned to gambling. He was sharp and clever, which made him successful. But his condition left him with a short temper, and he began drinking heavily. Knowing the gambling scene could be dangerous, Doc practiced self-defense. He became skilled with both a six-shooter and a long knife, preparing himself for any trouble. On January 2, 1875, he had a dispute with a local saloon owner named Austin. The argument escalated quickly. Shots were exchanged, but luckily no one was hurt. Both men were arrested afterward. At first, the local citizens found Doc Holliday's frequent confrontations more entertaining than threatening, until things turned deadly. A few days after one such altercation, Doc got into another argument, this time ending with the loss of a well-known local figure. Doc had fired 2 well-aimed shots, and it was clear just how dangerous he could be. In August 1879, Doc clashed with a local gunman named Mike Gordon. The disagreement escalated, and the two men took it outside. Doc, calm and collected, invited Gordon to begin whenever he was ready. Gordon accepted the challenge but didn't survive, having been hit by 3 shots. Despite being feared by many, Doc lived with a more powerful enemy, tuberculosis. Hoping to find relief in the healing waters of the hot springs, he moved to Colorado. However, the sulfur fumes may have worsened his condition. As he lay on his deathbed, he noticed he still had his boots on, something he had always joked about. He found it oddly amusing, saying, "This is funny," as he had always believed he'd die with his boots on. Doc Holliday passed away on November 8, 1887. His name still echoes in the tales of the Wild West. 5. Frank Buckskin. Leslie. Frank Leslie, often known as Frank Buckskin, wasn't just a gunslinger. He was known for his fierce temper, especially under the influence of alcohol. He earned the nickname Buckskin while working as an Army scout during the Plains Indian Wars. Eventually, Leslie opened the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Tombstone, Arizona, a town known for its rough characters. Not long after, he was involved in his first recorded shooting. He fatally wounded a man named Mike Killeen in what was officially deemed self-defense. However, people grew suspicious when, just 2 months later, Leslie married Killeen's widow. 2 years later, Leslie severely beat a man outside the Oriental Saloon with the handle of his pistol. Citizens of Tombstone began to fear him. He was even suspected of being involved in the death of fellow gunslinger John Ringo, though no charges were ever proven. Ringo's friend Billy Claiborne was so certain of Leslie's guilt that he challenged him publicly. Leslie responded, and Claiborne lost his life. Even in a town known for violence, Leslie stood out as particularly dangerous. By 1889, Tombstone had had enough. 2 years prior, Leslie had divorced his wife and become involved with a local woman named Blonde Molly Williams, a relationship that turned tragic. In a drunken rage, Leslie took her life. A ranch hand witnessed the incident, and with his testimony, Leslie was convicted of murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Surprisingly, he was paroled early, thanks to the support of a young divorcee named Belle Stowell, whom he later married. But his good fortune didn't last. After a short time, Leslie faded from public view, and to this day, the details of his death remain unknown. 6. John King Fischer, the outlaw lawman. The story of John King Fischer is different from many others. He wasn't just a gunslinger, he was also a rancher, outlaw, and later a lawman. He was born in 1854 in Collin County, Texas, to parents Joby and Lucinda Fischer. Just before the Civil War, the Fischer family moved to Florence, Williamson County, Texas. In 1869, John King Fischer was accused of horse theft, though he had only borrowed the horse without permission. He was arrested but reportedly escaped with the help of the horse's owner, who decided not to press charges. Fischer then relocated to Goliad, where he was arrested again, this time for housebreaking, and sent to prison. After receiving a pardon 4 months later, he moved to Dimmitt County and set up a ranch along Pendentia Creek. The area, known as the Nueces Strip, was notorious for being lawless, with cattle rustling as the main source of livelihood. Through a mix of influence and intimidation, Fischer became one of the most powerful figures in the region. His ranch served as a refuge for drifters, outlaws, and rustlers. One road sign even read, "This is King Fisher's road. Take the other." It showed how much control he held over the area. Though involved in violence and cattle raids, Fischer eventually chose to step away from crime. In 1881, he was appointed deputy sheriff of Uvalde County, where he gained respect as an efficient lawman. He planned to run for office in 1884, but fate had other plans. On March 11, 1884, while attending the Vaudeville Variety Theater in San Antonio with fellow gunslinger Ben Thompson, a violent confrontation broke out involving the theater owners. Both Fischer and Thompson were caught in the crossfire, and neither survived. 7. Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves's story is unlike any other. Born to enslaved parents in 1838 in Crawford County, Arkansas, he took his last name from his enslaver, William Reeves, and his first name from his grandfather, Bass Washington. Bass began as a water boy, eventually becoming a field hand, working alongside his parents. Around 1846, William Reeves moved his family and slaves to Grayson County, Texas, where Bass was inherited by William's son, George Reeves. George took Bass with him during the Civil War. It's uncertain exactly when Bass gained his freedom, but it was likely around the time the 13th Amendment abolished slavery in 1865. After that, Bass returned to Arkansas, where he farmed near Van Buren with his wife and children. In 1875, Judge Isaac Parker was appointed to the Federal Court of the Indian Territory. One of his first acts was assigning James F. Fagan to recruit 200 U.S. deputy marshals. Hearing of Bass's fluency in multiple native languages and knowledge of the territory, Fagan recruited him. Thus, Bass Reeves became the first black U.S. deputy marshal west of the Mississippi River, and one of the most respected lawmen in American history. Often appearing as a cowboy, farmer, or tracker, he earned a reputation for bringing fugitives to justice with skill and speed. In one well-known incident in 1889, Bass tracked down Tom Story's gang of horse thieves in Texas. When he confronted Tom Story with an arrest warrant, the outlaw panicked and reached for his gun. But Bass was quicker. 8. Wild Bill Hickok. Known to history as Wild Bill, his real name was James Butler Hickok. Though he only spent a few weeks in Deadwood, South Dakota, his legacy there made him one of the most legendary names of the Wild West. James Butler Hickok, better known as Wild Bill, arrived in Deadwood in July 1876. By then, he was already a legendary figure, known across the West as a skilled gambler and gunslinger who had survived many shootouts. Wild Bill was known to be fiercely self-reliant and wasn't afraid to put himself first. Before the Civil War, he worked as a stagecoach driver, but later ended up at Rock Creek Station in Nebraska Territory. There, a financial dispute with David McCanley's, a man Wild Bill had a complicated relationship with, ended violently when Wild Bill shot and killed him. His own wild ride came to an abrupt end on August 2nd, 1876, inside Nuttall and Mann's Saloon in Deadwood. While playing poker, Jack McCall approached him from behind and shot him in the head. At the time of his death, Wild Bill was reportedly holding a hand of 2 aces and 2 eights, now forever known in poker as the dead man's hand. Subscriber pick: the 3 most brutal gunslingers of the Old West. These next 3 gunslingers stand out not only for their legendary status, but for the sheer brutality with which they lived their lives. 9. Porter Rockwell. Known both as a lawman and a loyal bodyguard to Mormon founder Joseph Smith Jr., Porter Rockwell was a complex figure. Though records about his life are inconsistent, his birth date is disputed between June 28, 1813, and June 25, 1815. He played a key role in early Latter-day Saint history. He followed Joseph Smith to New York and was baptized on the very day the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was founded in April 1830. Later, as the church moved westward, Rockwell became known for his skill with firearms and his reputation for being both ruthless and devoted. Porter once said in 1869, "I never killed anyone who didn't need killing." Despite his efforts to serve as a lawman, many suspected him in the mysterious deaths of those considered enemies of the church, including a group of professional gamblers in the infamous Aiken affair. Though he was later indicted for his possible involvement, he died before trial. 10. Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid, born Henry McCarty, is perhaps the most famous outlaw in Western history, largely because he became one at such a young age. After losing his father early in life, his mother died of tuberculosis, and Billy and his younger brother were placed in a foster home. By the age of 14, Billy was working in a hotel as a dishwasher and waiter. He was well-liked and known for his good behavior. But things changed in September 1875, when he was arrested for holding stolen clothing for someone else. Just 2 days into his sentence, he escaped by climbing up the jailhouse chimney, his first step toward a life on the run. With no family or options, he joined Jesse Evans' gang, a group of rustlers known as the Boys. Soon, Billy was participating in livestock theft and gunfights across the Mescalero Apache Reservation and surrounding territories. Despite making a deal with the governor to testify against other outlaws, the promised pardon never came. He escaped again, proving once more his knack for slipping out of tight situations. Ironically, his downfall came through someone once considered a friend, Pat Garrett. Garrett, now sheriff of Lincoln County, was tasked with capturing Billy the Kid. At this point, Billy led his own gang and had a growing bounty on his head, $500, placed by Governor Wallace on December 15, 1880. These stories remind us that the Old West was a place of bold personalities, blurred lines between right and wrong, and legends shaped by both facts and folklore. Whether feared or admired, These figures have left a lasting mark on American history. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more legendary tales from the Wild West.